Clara's point of view.
I limped back to my room like a battered warrior who just survived the most absurd battle of her life, with gravity, a naked man, and my own damn pride. My elbow throbbed, my hip screamed. But it was my ego that had taken the worst hit. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at myself, hair frizzed, sleep shirt twisted, dignity somewhere down at the bottom of the staircase. "Get a grip," I muttered to my reflection. "You are not the girl who gets wrecked by a wolf with emotional issues and a six-pack." The girl in the mirror didn't look convinced. But I was tired of being steamrolled. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be marked. But if fate dragged me into this world, then it was time to stop letting it toss me around like a chew toy. I cleaned up, tied my hair back, and pulled on actual pants, the confident kind, though I had no idea who they originally belonged to. The closet was packed, and strangely, most of the clothes fit me. Then I headed downstairs, limping but determined. I needed answers. And if Riven wasn't going to give them to me willingly, I'd damn well find them myself. But I wasn't prepared for what I found first. The main living room was dim, fire crackling in the hearth, casting shadows across the floor. And there he was. Damn! Was he really that cold-blooded to be lighting a fire in the middle of the night? Couldn't he just crawl into bed like a normal person? Alone, seated on the armrest of a couch, one hand gripping a glass of something dark, head bowed like the flames were confessing sins only he understood. He looked cleaner now. Sort of. The blood was gone, the grime too. But the weight on his shoulders, still there, still heavy. And I felt him. That buzz in the air the second I entered the room. That damn mark tingling like it knew he was near. He didn't look at me, didn't move. Just took a slow sip and muttered, "I told you not to follow me again." "I'm not following you," I said coolly, stepping into the room. "This house has one staircase, Riven. Your brothel of a pack didn't exactly leave me with many peaceful routes." His jaw flexed. But he still didn't look at me. "You smell like bruises," he said. "You smell like death," I fired back. "So I guess we're even." That got him. He glanced up. Those eyes, blue fire and buried exhaustion, landed on me like a punch. "What do you want?" he asked. What do I want? I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap him. I wanted to grab him by that stupid shirt and ask why the hell he bit me only to act like I was a stain on his soul. But instead, I said, "Answers." His laugh was hollow, cruel. "You think I have any?" "No, but I think you're running from something you're scared I'll find out. And guess what? I'm not going anywhere." He stood then, slow, deliberate. I didn't flinch. Even he crossed the room until we were toe-to-toe. "You're in over your head," he murmured. "Then throw me a life jacket," I said, "or drown with me. But I'm done letting you act like this bond is just a glitch in the universe. It's not going away." His breath hitched. And for a second, I saw it. Fear. Not of me, but of what I meant to him. He broke the silence, his voice rough, like gravel under boots. "What do you even know about werewolves, Clara?" He stepped in closer, the space between us closing until I could feel the heat rolling off him. "To talk like that, like you understand any of this." I looked up at him, eyes sharp. "Enough." He arched a brow, skeptical. "No, really," I said, shoulders squaring. "Ever since you bit me, nothing's been the same." I closed my eyes, and it's wolves. Always wolves. Chasing me, circling me, sometimes even ripping me apart. His jaw clenched, but I didn't stop. Every night I wake up soaked in sweat, shaking. And the worst part? I'm learning in those dreams. Details. Things no normal girl should know. I know how your kind moves in the dark. I know what a rogue smells like. I know how it feels when teeth tear through flesh. I took a step closer, chin lifted. "I may not know why it's happening, but don't stand there and pretend I'm just some clueless girl. You made me part of this the moment your teeth sank into my skin." The air between us thickened. And then I smelled it. Whatever soap or shampoo he'd used clung to his skin like temptation itself. Something earthy and clean and warm, like pine and crushed spices with a hint of citrus. I inhaled without meaning to, and it hit me like a wave. God. It was intoxicating. I could feel his breath ghosting over my face now, warm and maddening, and just as he opened his mouth to speak, I cut him off. Why didn't you touch me that night? He froze. I saw it in his eyes, the sharp flicker of confusion followed by something darker, heavier. That night, I whispered, the words trembling at the edges. When you bit me. You marked me, Riven. You claimed me without permission. You had every chance, and yet, you didn't sleep with me. His throat bobbed. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't passed out. I was there, looking right at you. And you bit me. But you didn't take me. And I need to know why, because it's been eating me alive. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my heartbeat thudding in my ears, could see the war happening behind his eyes, guilt, rage, longing. Say something, I whispered. He looked at me like I was made of glass and fire all at once. And then the moans echoed again, louder, shameless, skin-slapping, groans mixing. I jerked my head upward toward the ceiling. My mouth fell open in shock, my face frozen somewhere between disbelief and second-hand embarrassment. I didn't even blink. Then slowly, like in one of those dramatic slow-motion scenes, I turned my gaze back to Riven. He was watching me. Not the ceiling, not the shadows around us. Me. His expression? Unreadable. One arm tossed lazily over the back of the couch, the other holding a bottle of dark liquor like it was part of him. His jaw ticked once, but he didn't look away. The air between us froze. The moans faded behind the pounding in my chest. His stare, heavy, shadowed, and impossible to read, held mine in a grip that felt suffocating. I couldn't tell if it was resentment, or longing, or both. I swallowed thickly and dropped my gaze, looking away fast like the weight of him was too much to bear. My legs moved on their own, aching and limping as I climbed the stairs. My foot scraped on the edge of a step, but I pushed through. Every groan from above felt like knives dragging under my skin. Halfway up, something tugged at me. I glanced over my shoulder. Riven hadn't moved. Still slouched on the couch, bottle halfway to his lips. But his eyes, they were wide open, fixed on nothing. Drinking like the sounds meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. And somehow, that stung more than it should have. My heart clenched, not for him, not exactly, but because he looked agitated, not drunk, not relaxed, just somewhere between tortured and empty. And I didn't know why that stirred something inside me. Anger twisted in my gut as the next moan spilled through the floor. That one. Too high-pitched, too fake. My nose flared. I stomped to the top of the stairs and turned sharply to the room where Liam and his playmate were going at it like animals. Are you freaking serious right now? I shouted through the door. The bed creaked louder. Laughter. I gritted my teeth, slapped my palm against the door, and muttered just loud enough, "Hope you both choke. Thanks for ruining an already fucked up night." No response. Only more movement. I didn't wait. I stormed to my room, slammed the door behind me, and threw myself onto the bed. But my mind refused to stay still. It was a mile away. With him. With the smell of his skin, clean, sharp, with that addictive hint of something like expensive shampoo I'd never even sniffed in stores. A scent so strong in him, it clouded my thoughts back downstairs. With his breath, warm on my cheek, the space between our mouths, and that look. The one that saw straight through my anger and touched something deeper. But most of all, it circled back to one thing I couldn't forget. Why didn't he touch me that night? I rolled over, staring at the ceiling like it might hold answers. Like maybe his reasons were written up there, hidden in the cracks of the plaster. But they weren't. And the questions clawed at my chest like a growing itch. Tomorrow, if he didn't bring it up again, I would. Because I needed to know. I don't remember when I finally fell asleep, only that my body gave in before my mind could. I was exhausted, but my thoughts wouldn't shut up. They kept spiraling around Riven's face, around Liam's moans, around everything that went wrong and everything I couldn't understand. But then, the dark began to fade. So, the edge of a dream brushed against me like a fog rolling in, slow and soft, pulling me into something that didn't feel real, but didn't feel entirely fake either. I was barefoot, standing in a forest that shimmered with gold light, like the sun was trapped in the trees. My legs felt heavy, like I had walked for miles, and I couldn't move anymore. I sank to my knees, the soft moss beneath me cool against my skin. Then I felt it. A warm breath touched my ankle, then a tongue, gentle, slow, careful. I looked down and saw a brown wolf, massive, with amber eyes that glowed with something far more human than any animal should carry. He licked along my foot, up my calf, the sensation warm and tingling. Not in a weird way, but in a way that made the ache in my legs disappear. Completely. My toes curled into the moss, the relief like magic crawling up my bones. I knew what this was. I don't know how, I just knew. This was how wolves healed their mates, not just with bites, with touch, with closeness, with this. Each stroke of his tongue erased something. Pain, exhaustion, maybe even a little of the hopelessness I had felt earlier. I stared into his eyes, and I swear, I saw something I couldn't name. Comfort. AU, safety. EA, possession. And then, like smoke, he was gone. The morning light sliced through the curtain cracks, and I stirred with a soft groan, stretching out with my arms above my head, spine arching slightly off the bed. My voice cracked as I mumbled a tired prayer. Thank you, God, for another day of breathing. I exhaled. Another day of getting answers, the hard way. I tossed the blanket off, preparing myself for the familiar sting in my feet. Another painful shuffle toward the bathroom. My toes grazed the floor, bracing for agony. But there was none. I stood. My brows furrowed. I took one step. Then another. No pain, no limp, nothing. I blinked, stunned. My gaze dropped to my feet, and my mouth fell open. There was no swelling, no bruising, not even a scar. So it wasn't a dream, I whispered, my voice barely audible. It was real. His wolf healed me.
Riven's point of view.
I didn't move when she disappeared up the stairs. Didn't flinch at her limp. Didn't stop her when she looked back at me with that wounded expression that cracked something deep inside my chest. I just sat there, drinking like I could drown the truth, sitting heavy on my shoulders. But the bottle didn't help. Nothing did. The moans from Liam's room had long since faded, replaced by silence that clawed at the inside of my skull. My jaw was tight. My fingers had curled so hard around the bottle that the glass whined under the pressure. I hated this. Hated the way she made me feel like I couldn't breathe. Hated how every time I told myself to push her away, something in me pulled toward her like I was chained to her soul. I bit her, marked her, made her part of my world. But I hadn't touched her. Not that night. Not since. I could have taken her. God, I wanted to. But something held me back. Something human. Something fragile. And maybe that's why I found myself standing outside her door, sometime after midnight. Long after the house fell quiet, and even the moon stopped looking at me like I was a monster. My hand hovered over the knob. I didn't knock, didn't breathe. I just pushed it open, silently. She was asleep, curled up on her side, her breathing slow, the blankets twisted around her legs. She looked small, tired, like the weight of the world had finally worn her down. And guilt hit me like a damn freight train. I told her I didn't care. I told her she meant nothing, and yet I shifted before I could talk myself out of it. The pain of bones breaking, reshaping, it didn't matter. Not when I stepped toward her on 4 paws, my claws silent against the floorboards, and saw the way she winced in her sleep. The bruising on her leg, the faint scent of pain still clinging to her skin. I lowered my head and began to lick, slow, careful. Not because I didn't know how, but because touching her felt sacred. The moment my tongue met her skin, something shifted in the air, like my wolf knew exactly what to do. The taste of her blood was faint, but the pain there pulsed like a beacon. Mate healing wasn't just about flesh. It was a bond thing, and I fucking felt it. I licked along the arch of her foot, up the bruise behind her ankle, and higher. Her body stirred once, a soft sigh escaping her lips. But she didn't wake. Her pain ebbed. I felt it. It flowed out of her and into me like a silent exchange. I pressed my head gently to her calf, breathing her in. This was wrong. This was everything I said I wouldn't do, but I couldn't stop. I stayed like that for a long time, just breathing her, letting the sound of her heart settle the storm inside mine. Then, as quietly as I came, I slipped away to rest my head. Didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just lay there in my room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the walls breathe. The sun had barely climbed the edge of the sky when the knock came. Sharp, impatient, and then her voice, bright, blunt, and completely unbothered. "I'm coming in." What the hell? My brow arched before my brain even caught up. The door cracked open, and there she was, smuggling herself into my room like she owned the damn house, like boundaries were something that happened to other people. She wasn't limping. She wasn't wincing. She looked fresh, smug, and way too awake for this hour. I pushed up on one elbow, giving her a look. Ever heard of knocking and waiting for permission? She ignored me completely, walking straight in like this was a hotel room she paid for, and I was the entertainment. "Look," she said, swinging her leg up onto the bed like it belonged there, her foot landing way too close to my thigh for it to be friendly. "You healed me." I blinked. "What?" "You made me think I was dreaming when you licked my bruises." Fuck, boy. Wolves are full of wonders. My brain short-circuited. "Did you just—" She smacked her hand lightly against my torso like this was some casual catch-up conversation. "Anyway," she grinned, "thank you. Or, should I thank you? Or your wolf?" I stared at her. For a second, my face couldn't figure out which emotion to land on. Shock, amusement, denial, arousal. And then I laughed. A short, stunned breath at first, then another. And then it rolled out of me. Real, full, and uncontrollable. I hadn't laughed like that in years. It hit my chest so hard it startled even me. She blinked, clearly not expecting it. "You okay?" But I couldn't stop. She just sat there, grinning like she'd cracked something in me I didn't know was still alive. Until I finally caught my breath, wiped my face and muttered, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" Before she could answer, a new voice cut in. "Did you finally make out?" Clara and I both whipped our heads toward the door. Liam, leaning against the frame, arms crossed, a devil's grin playing at the corner of his mouth. Clara's mouth dropped open. I sat up fast. "What the hell, Liam?" He just raised a brow. "I was coming to say breakfast is ready before we move, but if you're already eating something—" "Get out!" I snapped. Clara sputtered beside me. No one made out, you perv. Liam looked between us, eyes narrowing slightly, like he could smell the tension still sizzling in the air. And then he winked. Sure. And disappeared down the hall. Clara turned to me, flustered and fuming. You see what I mean? This house is cursed. I chuckled, voice low and rasping from the leftover laugh. Yeah, I said, but for once, I'm not mad about it. Clara turned to me, face still burning from Liam's bombshell. Are you guys going somewhere? Liam paused mid-step in the hallway, turning just slightly toward us. Yeah, we're relocating. My shoulders stiffened. Of course he'd blurted out like that. Clara blinked. Relocating? Why? What happened to this place? I didn't say anything at first, just exhaled, long and slow, running a hand through my hair. I didn't want to drag her into this. But she was already in it. She was it. And if I wanted to keep her breathing, I couldn't keep her blind. I finally looked up. It's not safe here anymore. She stepped in fully, arms folding across her chest. Because of who? I gave a quiet sigh, raking a hand down my face. Old enemies. Ones I've kept off my back for a while now. But something stirred them up. She blinked slowly. Because of me? No, I said, maybe too fast. Not directly. But ever since I marked you, I trailed off. Let's just say, it made it harder to stay hidden. She stood still, absorbing that. I could tell she wanted more. Names, reasons, full backstory. But I wasn't offering that up. Not yet. Not until I could figure out who the hell tipped them off. Not until I could trust my own damn instincts again. Clara finally asked, "What about Liam?" So, after breakfast, grab whatever you can carry. Just a few things. She hesitated. Where are we going? I stood, reaching for the shirt I'd dropped on the back of the chair. Somewhere quieter. Off the map. For how long? I looked at her, dead serious. Until I say otherwise. The tires hummed against the road, a low, constant growl that didn't let my thoughts settle. Liam was behind the wheel, one hand casually draped at 2 o'clock, eyes on the endless stretch of asphalt, cutting through backwoods silence. I sat in the passenger seat, arms folded, body still tense from the night before. Clara sat in the back seat behind me, pressed against the window, her face turned toward the passing trees like she was counting every branch. The early morning sun painted her skin gold, catching on the strands of hair falling over her shoulder. She hadn't said a word since we left, and I couldn't stop watching her through the rearview mirror. Every few miles, I'd glance again, and right beside her, Ava. I let out a slow breath, trying to shift my thoughts elsewhere, but then, you keep staring at her like she's gonna disappear. Liam's voice slid into my mind through the mind link, casual as ever, like he was discussing the weather. I grunted, not answering. I mean, you've already marked her, he added, his voice playful. Might as well give it a chance. Who knows? Maybe the moon sent her to mend that cracked mess you call a heart. I stiffened. She's human, Liam. I growled back silently, keeping my eyes on the road. She looks like she can't even defend herself, let alone survive in our world. Liam snorted through the link. Yeah? And yet she hasn't run screaming. Not from your moods, not from your claws, not even when she found you covered in blood smelling like gasoline. He paused. Kinda sounds like strength to me. I clenched my jaw, refusing to take the bait. My eyes flicked back to the mirror. She hadn't moved, still staring out the window, still unreachable. She deserves more than someone who'd ruin her just by standing too close, I said. Liam was quiet for a beat. Fine, he said at last. Then tell me what you're gonna do about the mark. I didn't respond. Because it's not going to erase off her skin. I didn't breathe for a second. Just sat there, listening to the road, watching the trees blur by, and wondering how the hell I was supposed to protect something so soft when I was built to destroy. The silence had stretched long, just the steady hum of the engine and the occasional bump in the road. Then Clara shifted in her seat, her voice clear and calm, but edged with urgency. "Does anyone have a phone I can use? Just for a minute. I need to call someone important. Someone close. They're probably looking for me." Ava, sitting beside her, arms crossed and legs tucked up, glanced her way, then reached into her coat and pulled out her phone. "Make it quick," Ava said, handing it over. "Thank you," Clara murmured, already unlocking the screen and typing. I glanced at the rearview mirror, watched her fingers move fast, watched her eyes focus like this moment mattered more than the one we were in. My jaw tensed. Who the hell was she calling? "Don't even pretend you're not dying to know who she's dialing." Liam's voice slid into my head like a damn smirk. "You worried she's calling her boyfriend, Romeo?" My head snapped to him so fast it nearly cracked my neck. I shot him a glare that said one more word, and I will snap your steering wheel in half. Liam grinned, like the bastard he is. And right then, Clara lifted the phone to her ear and spoke the name that made the entire inside of the car drop 10 degrees colder. "Kevin? Kevin." My hands curled into fists on my lap. "Liam! Of course. Lost it." He burst out laughing so hard he nearly swerved into the damn trees. "Kevin?" He wheezed through gasps. "Oh man, he sounds like a tax accountant." "Shut up," I growled through gritted teeth. Clara ignored us, still talking softly into the phone, her voice earnest. No, I'm okay. I swear, I didn't get kidnapped. I just can't explain everything right now. But I'm safe. I'm with people who—" She glanced up, her gaze brushing me for half a second. "Are helping." I clenched my jaw tighter. Her words didn't help. She sounded soft. Too soft. Like she was trying to convince a lover. A voice I hadn't earned, and didn't deserve. But hearing it used for someone else, especially some asshole named Kevin, had my wolf clawing at the inside of my ribs. I couldn't take it. "Ava," I mind-linked sharply. "Take the phone." Her brows furrowed. "What?" "She's not done. She's too loud." My voice was ice. "Do it." Ava looked at me in the mirror, eyes narrowing like she was trying to read what the hell was really going on. But she turned toward Clara anyway and tapped her shoulder. "Hey, time's up. Hand it back." Clara blinked, confused. "I'm almost done. Now," Ava said more firmly. Clara hesitated, then sighed, and pulled the phone from her ear. "Babe, I'll call you again if I can. Please don't worry. I'm okay." That word. Babe. It sliced straight through me. I didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even move. But every muscle in my body tensed, locked up like steel under pressure. She handed the phone back to Ava, biting her lip like she'd just lost something important. I stared out the window harder, jaw clenched, breathing shallow, pretending that damn word didn't just crawl under my skin like a parasite looking for a fight. Babe. Like she belonged to him. Like that mark on her neck didn't mean shit. Yeah. Now the wolf was really awake. The silence returned. Heavy. Pressurized. Like the whole car was holding its breath. I kept my eyes forward, but every few minutes they'd flick back to her. Clara hadn't said a word since she handed Ava back the phone. She just stared out the window again, hugging herself like her thoughts were the only warmth she had. I hated that I noticed everything. The way her jaw tensed when we passed another gas station. The way she pulled her sleeves down even when it wasn't cold. The way she didn't smile anymore. Damn it. Liam turned the wheel onto a quieter stretch of highway, and glanced at the dashboard. "We'll stop soon. Let the girls stretch. Grab something to hold us over." I gave a grunt in agreement, jaw still clenched. 20 minutes later, we pulled into a rundown roadside diner and gas station, the kind of place where the food tasted like ash, and the coffee came with an attitude. "Grab whatever," I told Ava and Clara, as I climbed out and stretched. 10 minutes. They wandered off, shoulder to shoulder, different as fire and ash, but moving like they'd been doing it forever. Ava, all confidence. Clara, quiet but observant. I leaned against the hood, arms crossed. Liam cracked his knuckles. "Is she still in your head?" he asked under his breath. I didn't answer. Didn't have to. And then, I smelled it. Sweat, cigarettes, leather, but no wolf, no magic. Human. Still, something was off. I pushed off the hood and scanned the area. A guy near the pumps, tall, cheap jacket, pretending to scroll through his phone. He looked up the second Clara stepped into the store. Wrong move. I was on him in seconds. "Hey." My voice was low. Calm. Too calm. He blinked. I don't want trouble." "Then stop following us." "I'm not." I grabbed his collar, shoved him gently against the edge of his car. Not hard enough to bruise, just enough to make him listen. "You've been tailing since the last turnoff. That wasn't a coincidence." The guy's eyes darted toward the diner, just a flicker, barely noticeable. But I saw it. He wasn't here for gas. He was here for her. Clara. And that made this personal. "Listen, man, I don't know what you think." I pressed a little harder. Not enough to draw attention. Just enough to make his breath hitch. "I think," I said, voice gravel and thunder, "you're 5 seconds from leaving in an ambulance unless you tell me who sent you." No one. I was just..." "Wrong answer." I pulled him a few inches off the ground and bared just a hint of fang. Not enough to flash the full beast. Just enough to make his scent shift from sweat to piss. Okay. I wasn't sent by anyone," he stammered. I recognized her." My blood turned to ice. "What?" He glanced toward the diner again, then lowered his voice. "The girl. Clara. I saw her photo on some forum. Deep net stuff. Guys talking about a bounty. A high one. No name, no details. Just a blurry shot of her walking somewhere downtown. I didn't know if it was real or not until I saw her at the last gas station." My hands tightened. My wolf snarled inside me, rage clawing at my spine. "Forum name," I growled. "Now!" He mumbled something. I slammed him back against the car. "Say it again." "Red Vein. That's what it was called. Some invite-only chat group. I swear, I didn't think it was real. I was just curious." I dropped him. He slid down the car like his spine had liquefied. I didn't say another word, just turned and stalked toward the diner. Ava noticed me first through the window. She raised a brow. I jerked my chin toward the door, and she got the message. Clara was at the far end of the counter, arms crossed, fingers toying with a sugar packet like it was the only thing tethering her to earth. I marched straight past Ava and leaned against the counter beside Clara. She looked up, startled. "What is it?" she asked, frowning. "We're leaving. Now." "What? Why?" I didn't answer, just reached for her arm. Not rough, but not gentle either. She jerked away instinctively and it pissed me off more than it should have. "Riven," she said, her voice low but sharp. "Don't touch me like that." My jaw clenched. I leaned in close, letting her feel every ounce of the tension simmering off me. "Someone recognized you. There's a bounty on your head, Clara. You still want to fight me over manners?" Her eyes widened. Ava appeared at our side, all tension and questions. Liam followed a second later, phone already pressed to his ear. "Red Vein," I muttered to him. "Look into it." He nodded, already dialing. Clara swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would someone—" "I don't know," I said. "But we're not waiting to find out." I turned to Ava. Get her in the car. Now. Ava pulled Clara gently toward the door, this time without resistance. But I felt her eyes on me the whole time. Not scared, not confused, just torn. Like some part of her hated that she still trusted me, and damn me for it. But I needed her to. The second the doors shut behind them, I slammed the car into gear and peeled out of the diner lot. The tires screeched, the engine growled, and the road blurred as the vehicle surged forward like it could outrun the scent of blood still thick in my nose. Liam had his phone up, screen flickering as he worked. I didn't ask what he was doing. I knew. "Red vein," I said again, just in case he forgot what was on the line. He didn't even look up. "Already searching the encrypted forums. Give me a second. Whoever's running this site is good at hiding." The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. Clara sat curled in the back seat, arms wrapped around herself like she was bracing for something she couldn't see yet. Ava sat beside her, eyes flicking between the windows, like danger was still outside. 10 miles passed. Then Liam made a sound. Low. Disgusted. "Well," he muttered, "that's twisted." I flicked my gaze to him. "What is it?" "It's not just a dark forum," he said, scrolling. "It's camouflaged as a private dating site. Invitation only. Locked profiles. The usual dirty fantasy garbage, but underneath, it's a buyer's market." My jaw locked. For what? He turned the phone slightly toward me. People. Clara's voice broke the silence from the back. Soft. Tight. "Wait. What?" Liam kept scrolling. "They don't use names. Just photos. Coordinates. Some of the listings say things like rare bloodline or high-value bond. It's coded, but someone's marketing her." Clara leaned forward between the receipts, voice sharp. "Are you telling me that my face is on some twisted site bringing freaks to my door?" Ava scoffed, glancing sideways. "It is, girl. That's why that guy at the pump was tailing us." Clara shook her head. "No, I've never even been on a dating site. I don't even use those apps." Liam turned in his seat and raised his phone, the glow from the screen lighting Clara's face. Her breath hitched. The image was blurry, but unmistakable. Clara didn't say anything at first. She stared at it like it might vanish if she blinked hard enough. Like maybe this was all some mistake, and she was going to wake up back in her apartment, exhausted from her shift, feet sore from waitressing, and no wolves or strangers following her through gas stations. But she didn't wake up. She just inhaled sharply, dropped back into her seat and whispered, "Can I borrow your phone again?" Ava turned, hesitated, then looked up at me, like I was supposed to give the green light. I didn't give it. Instead, I said flatly, "No." Clara blinked. "What?" Ava lowered the phone slowly, uncertain. Clara leaned forward between the seats, her voice rising. "Riven, I'm not going to break it. I just need to talk to—" "That's not the problem," I snapped, eyes on the road. "Then what is the problem?" she shot back. I exhaled slowly through my nose, tightening my grip on the steering wheel. "Because I know exactly who you're planning to call. And if you think I'm letting you reconnect with whatever babe you tossed at Kevin earlier—" "Oh my God," she muttered, throwing herself back into her seat. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I growled. "And not just because I don't want to hear you flirt with another man, while my mark is still burned into your damn shoulder." Ava's brows shot up. "But because if you call someone right now, anyone, there's a good chance they're being watched." That shut both of them up. I glanced in the rearview mirror, catching Clara's stunned expression. I continued, voice low, tight. My father's pack had the best trackers in the region, and if any of those wolves are still there, they'll find any link they can to get to us. Clara's jaw tightened. You think they'd come after me? Not you as such, but they'd at anyone I'm tied to, anyone carrying my mark. The words hung in the air like frost. I didn't mean to say them out loud. Didn't mean for them to sound so heavy. I cleared my throat and continued. Once we arrive and settle, I'll get you your own phone. Secure. Clean. But until then, you're not reaching out to anyone. And I'm just supposed to accept that? She muttered. Yes. She crossed her arms, glaring out the window again. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because if I did, I'd probably do something reckless. Like pull the car over. Like reach for her again. Like admit I didn't just want to protect her from my father's legacy. I wanted to protect myself from her walking away once she figured out what kind of man had marked her. We crossed the border before dawn. Hours passed when even wolves sleep. The roads narrowed. The trees thickened. Pines taller than towers swallowed the car as I took one final turn up a winding, unpaved trail that hadn't seen traffic in years. The safe house appeared in pieces. First the stone gate, then the wooden posts, then the two-story cottage nestled beneath the mountain's throat like it was hiding from the world. The roof sagged in places. Moss crept up one wall. The windows were still covered in storm dust, but the bones of it? Solid. They all slept. Clara's head rested on Ava's shoulder, her breathing even but restless. I cut the engine, stepped out quietly, and shut the door with care. The cold hit me immediately, sharp, familiar. Home, in the way grief sometimes is. I didn't go in right away. I circled the house first, checked every corner, every weak spot, every overgrown trail that led into the woods and out again, the same way I did when I was 14, and swore to my grandmother I'd never let anything bad happen here. She used to bring me here to keep her company whenever she and grandfather had a war between them no one ever spoke about. Something that made her leave the pack for weeks at a time. Just the two of us. She'd say, "This place doesn't ask questions. It just lets you breathe." She died 3 years ago. The last time I was here was to scatter her ashes in the trees. I stepped inside the house, boots echoing against the wood floor. Dust clung to every surface. The fireplace stood cold, stone chipped where her favorite chair used to rock. Room by room, I checked them. Some still had her touch, a half-empty teacup, a yellowed book under the bed, her knitting basket tipped in the corner like it hadn't been touched in years. I left it all. I opened the last door at the end of the hallway. My room. Smaller than I remembered, quieter. I exhaled and leaned against the doorframe, the weight of everything pressing in now that there was no road to distract me. And then, soft footsteps. Light. Careful. I turned. She stood there in the hallway. "Hey," Clara whispered, voice raw with sleep. I said nothing. Couldn't. Words got lost somewhere between my throat and my chest. But she didn't fill the silence. She just stood there, looking at me. Not like she was afraid, not like she was angry, but like she saw me. And damn it if that didn't make something in me break. Because in her eyes, I saw everything I never said, everything I buried here, everything I ran from. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. And I didn't speak. But my heart started pounding like it wanted out of my ribs, like it recognized her all over again. Like it had been waiting for this moment. The bond, it didn't pull. It wrapped. Softly, slowly, like smoke curling into the cracks of a wall I spent years building. It didn't demand, it invited, and I almost let it. Then she did something that shattered me quietly. She smiled, not wide, not playful, just a curve of understanding that said, "You don't have to talk." And just like that, the mark burned. But this time, it didn't hurt. It warmed. The bond shifted between us, something sacred realigning. Not forceful, not chaotic, but like it found a new way to connect where the old one had snapped. I gripped the edge of the door. She stood still. And for the first time since that night, I wondered what would happen if I let myself want her.
Clara's point of view.
I didn't know when I fell asleep. One moment I was standing in the hallway, watching him, watching the way his eyes shimmered like something inside him had snapped loose. And the next, darkness. Then light. I blinked awake to sunlight filtering through a cracked window, golden and warm. Dust danced lazily through the beams, like it had nowhere else to be. The room was cold, but not in the cruel way I'd grown used to. It was quiet. Still. The kind of still that felt sacred. For the first time in days, I didn't feel hunted. I didn't feel watched. I felt alive. My chest rose slowly as I breathed it in. The air here was sharp with pine, old wood, and something wild beneath it all. Like the house remembered things no one had spoken in years. I sat up, dragging the blanket tighter around my shoulders. The mattress creaked. Dust flew from the pillow and floated up into my nose. I coughed and waved my hand, muttering under my breath. Damn it! Figures. Everyone here had supernatural immune systems, and I was the one coughing like a grandma on her porch. I slipped out of bed and rubbed my eyes. My hair was a mess. My throat was dry. But my soul, it felt quiet. And I couldn't remember the last time that had happened. I padded across the room and peeked out the window. The forest stretched out around us, wrapped in a sleepy morning haze. I turned, stepped into the hallway, and moved down the old floorboards barefoot. The wood groaned under my feet like it was stretching after a long nap. I didn't hear anyone. Liam and Ava had stayed in the car, probably still asleep, which meant Riven. I found myself walking toward the far end of the hall, past the old bookshelf, toward the room I'd seen him disappear into last night. I needed to ask him where the vacuum was. I wanted to clean, dust this place out before it made someone sick. Or before it made me feel like I didn't belong. But I stopped. Right at his door. I reached out to knock, but froze halfway. Because the image of him from last night, standing in that narrow hallway with grief etched into every hard line of his face, hit me again. I saw his jaw tremble, his eyes water. And he didn't hide it. Not from me. Something twisted deep inside me. A pang. Not quite pain, not quite longing. Just something. I didn't know what it meant yet. But it left me standing outside his door, heartbeat too loud in my ears, one hand resting lightly over the center of my chest. And I whispered, to no one. Why did that look make me feel like I was about to cry, too? I knocked softly. Twice. No answer. I almost turned away. Almost walked back to my room, pretending I never had the thought, never wanted to see him again this soon. But the door creaked open on its own, just an inch. He must have left it unlocked. I peeked inside. Riven sat near the window, shirtless, back to me, sunlight pouring over the lines of his back like the universe was trying to remind me just how real he was. He didn't turn. Come in, he said, voice low, rough from sleep. I stepped inside slowly, fingers tight around the small blanket still wrapped around me. I didn't mean to wake you, I said. I wanted to ask where the vacuum is. That made him turn. Just slightly. His lips quirked, almost a smile, but not quite. More like amusement pulled tight with something deeper. You woke me up to clean? I nodded, trying not to look too hard at his bare chest, or the way the sunlight kissed the edge of a tattoo near his ribs. I started coughing. Dust everywhere. I figured, it might be good to not choke to death before breakfast. He stood, and before I could say another word, His voice cut through the quiet. "You don't have to clean," he said, tone flat but not cruel. "We'll find someone to do it." I blinked. "Why? I can help a little. It's not like I'm trying to renovate the place." He crossed the room, heading toward the narrow door on the side. One I hadn't realized led to the bathroom. "You're not a maid," he said as he opened it. I followed without thinking, instinct guiding my steps like the air around him pulled me in. "I didn't say I was a maid," I replied, hovering at the doorway as he turned on the tap. "I just want to do something. I'm used to living in a clean house where I don't sneeze my nose out because of the dust." He bent over the sink, splashing cold water on his face, his back flexing beneath the morning light. I tried not to look. I failed. "Oh," I added, "I'm sorry. You might not understand. You're a wolf. But try to understand me. It's nothing much. It's for our own good hygiene." He didn't answer right away. Just rubbed water into his hair, letting the droplets run down the curve of his jaw. Then he turned and walked past me. His shoulder brushed my arm. It was the lightest touch, but it sent a wave through me, like every butterfly in my stomach had been waiting in formation, and he'd just clapped. I stood frozen for a second, breath stuck in my chest. He grabbed the shirt from the edge of the bed, pulling it over his head as he spoke, voice rough but laced with something almost amused. "You're so damn persistent." I shrugged, doing my best not to let my fluster show. "Take it that way," I said. "Still doesn't change the fact that my throat feels like it ate a feather duster." He shook his head slightly, turning to face me. "There's no vacuum cleaner here," he said. "I was planning to go into town anyway. Grab some supplies, something we can actually use." I perked up. "Let me come with you." He hesitated, just a flicker of thought across his eyes, then nodded once. "Fine," he said. "But at least wash that thing in your eyes first. You've got morning crust so thick, it's making me itch." I rolled my eyes and huffed a laugh, brushing past him toward the bathroom. "Thank you for that charming observation," I muttered, stepping in. He didn't answer. But I felt his gaze linger for just a second longer before he walked away. And I couldn't help the small smile that curled across my lips as I stood in front of the mirror. The house was still old, still dusty, still quiet. But something about this morning, it didn't feel so heavy anymore. I splashed my face, scrubbed the sleep from my eyes, and stared at my reflection for a moment longer than I needed to. "Persistent," I whispered, mimicking his voice. Then I smirked. "Damn right." I stepped out of the bathroom and followed the low murmur of voices until I found myself in the living room. Ava was slumped sideways in one of the armchairs, limbs dangling like she hadn't slept in a decade. The upholstery was coated in dust and faded floral patterns that had clearly lived through better times. "Morning," I said gently, approaching. Ava lifted her head slightly. "Morning." You, didn't notice the couch was basically dust and vibes before you collapsed on it?" She turned her head and gave me a lingering look, not hostile, just unreadable. Then she blinked once and looked away. "Do you by chance know how to cook?" she asked. I raised a brow. "I do. Why? Are you hungry?" Ava sighed, almost dramatically. "Thank God, someone in this dump knows how to get something to eat." I crouched beside her and grinned. Wasn't planning on starving today either. But as I lowered myself, I inhaled too deeply and instantly regretted it. I sneezed hard, rocking sideways. Ava side-eyed me. "Careful. Might sneeze yourself into the next dimension." "Are you always this moody?" I teased, wiping my nose. She arched a brow, unimpressed. "Define moody." "Not in a bad spirit," I added quickly, "but I'd like us to get along. We're the only women in this house full of testosterone, you know. Might help if we didn't glare at each other all day." Ava looked at me for a beat, then turned her gaze back to the dusty ceiling. "I'm not looking for friends." Ouch. I sighed, rising back to my feet. Cool. Noted. I left her there, arms folded, mood locked, and wandered out to where I could hear voices coming from the front porch. Riven stood at the base of the steps, talking to Liam, who leaned casually against the hood of the car like he hadn't just spent the night in it. Morning, I said, forcing a smile. Liam straightened slightly, his eyes gleaming like always. Well, look who's up. Morning, Clara. Riven just looked at me and said, Get in the car. I blinked. Demanding much? He didn't flinch. You still want to come with me, right? I held his gaze for a beat longer than necessary, then turned, walked to the passenger side, and got in without a word. Riven followed, sliding behind the wheel, silent as ever. The door shut. The engine started. And just like that, we were on the road again. Only this time, it wasn't escape. It felt like something else entirely. The car ride was quiet. Too quiet. And not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of silence that pressed in from all sides, awkward and heavy, like we were both pretending we didn't notice the everything hanging between us. I glanced sideways at Riven. He had one hand on the wheel, the other draped lazily over his thigh. His face was unreadable, jaw tight, eyes focused straight ahead like the road might disappear if he blinked. I exhaled and shifted in my seat, dragging my fingers along the radio dial. He didn't say anything. Didn't stop me either. So I took that as permission. I turned the knob slowly, static fuzz cutting in and out as I searched for anything that didn't sound like white noise in a blender. Every station was either an ad, someone preaching in a voice too loud for morning, or hard rock that made my headache twitch. Until, click. A soft piano chord. Then a familiar melody. I gasped. Oh my God! Riven looked over slightly, eyebrows drawn. I didn't care. I turned it up just a little, just enough to feel the warmth of nostalgia wrap around me. There's nothing I can do. A total eclipse of the heart. I grinned. And without thinking, I started singing. Not full volume karaoke, but just under my breath, like my soul was humming through the cracks. Once upon a time, I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart. It was ridiculous. Corny. Completely out of place in a car with a brooding half-wolf man who looked like he'd never laughed in his life. But I didn't care. Because it felt good. The lyrics rolled off my tongue like they were stitched into my bones. Riven didn't say a word. Didn't glare. Didn't smirk. He just kept driving. And for the first time in days, I felt normal. Almost happy. Until... And up next, we've got a special segment from our morning sponsor talking about the benefits of raw garlic in your diet. The radio host's voice blasted through the speakers like a siren, completely drowning out the music. I gasped, hand slapping the dash. You traitor! I yelled at the radio like it betrayed my firstborn. You couldn't even give me the last chorus? Riven blinked. And, I swear on everything holy, the corner of his mouth ticked. Like it wanted to smile. I narrowed my eyes at the speaker. Raw garlic? Seriously? That's what you cut off Bonnie Tyler for. Raw damn garlic? I shut the radio off in protest, crossing my arms. I hate morning people, I muttered. Still, Riven didn't say anything. But I saw his knuckles shift slightly on the wheel. And that almost smile? It stayed there. Just a second longer. The silence returned, thick with garlic betrayal and my bruised karaoke dreams. I reached down, pulling my sleeves over my hands, still chuckling under my breath. For a second, the mood had actually felt normal. Easy. But then Riven spoke. Low. Tense. Steel wrapped in velvet. Now, if you don't mind telling me, he said, eyes still locked on the road, who in the fucking hell is Kevin to you? The breath caught in my throat. I turned, slowly. Excuse what? My pulse kicked up, heat rising in my chest. You're seriously jealous of Kevin? He finally looked at me. And his eyes? They weren't just glowing. They were hungry. I'm not jealous, he growled. I'm territorial. Don't confuse the two. I opened my mouth, but the words stalled. Because somewhere between the road and the radio and that question, I realized something. He was falling. And he hated it. I saw it, felt it, the moment he said Kevin's name like it was dipped in venom and gasoline. And I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not polite laughter, not a nervous giggle. A real laugh, from my chest. Loud, warm, and unbothered. Riven stiffened instantly. His jaw clenched. His hands gripped the wheel like he was trying to hold onto his pride before I tore it to shreds. Oh my God, I wheezed, leaning into the door. That's what this is about? He didn't answer. He did not need to. The silence said everything. I wiped a tear from the corner of my eye and shook my head. You thought Kevin was some guy I was flirting with? Still no answer. I grinned wider. You told Ava not to give me her phone because I was talking to Kevin. You were jealous over my best friend. Wait, he muttered finally, eyes still forward. Kevin is a girl's name? I snorted. No, but she's Kevin. He finally looked at me, just a flick of his gaze, sharp and annoyed. Why the hell is her name Kevin? She was supposed to be named Kevina, I said, smiling. Her dad messed up the birth certificate. True story. She liked it, so it stuck. Riven stared at me for a beat, then slowly leaned his head back against the seat with a frustrated sigh that sounded a lot like regret and male ego combusting quietly. I smirked wider. You're actually jealous of my girl best friend. You even stopped Ava from giving me her phone, because you were worried I'd call her. He shifted, clearly trying to hide the way his ears were turning red. Stop laughing, he said, voice gruff, low. I really can't, I replied, grinning. This is gold. He glared out the window. So I leaned in, slow and smug, letting my voice dip just enough to brush against him. Now, are we clear and good, Mr. Jealousy Wolf? He growled low under his breath. But he didn't tell me to stop. And that little pink on his ears? It made my entire morning. The silence that followed was tight. Thick enough to drown in. I leaned back in my seat, but my pulse was still dancing. I glanced sideways at him, watching the way his jaw flexed, like he was chewing on a curse word he didn't want to spit. I tilted my head. Let me get this straight, I said, voice softer now, but sharp with truth. You get jealous when I talk to someone else, when I call another person babe. But you don't want anything to do with me? He didn't answer. Didn't flinch. Just kept his eyes glued to the road like it was his only escape. That silence? It said everything. And nothing. Typical Riven. I let it hang, not pushing further. Not yet, because I saw it in his posture, the tension. The way he was wound tight like a spring ready to snap. He was processing. Fighting himself. Fighting me. We drove in silence the rest of the way, tires crunching over gravel, then pavement, then into something resembling civilization. Buildings started appearing on either side. Wooden storefronts, gas stations, narrow streets. A bar with no name and windows so tinted it might as well have been closed since 2005. I sat up straighter. I thought this was a small town. It is, he said without looking at me. I raised a brow. How come? Get out, he interrupted, parking the truck in front of a rustic-looking building with a clean glass front and old timber signage. I blinked. Charming. The sign above the door read, Goody Steel Supply Company. Home tech, tools, furniture for off-grid life. I stepped out of the truck, the cool air hitting my face as I glanced around. People move slower here. No honking, no chaos, just an eerie quiet. Riven rounded the vehicle without saying a word and opened the door. I followed him inside. The shop smelled like sawdust and new wires, half hardware, half sleek home tech. Shelves of coffee machines stood proudly beside power drills and solar batteries. It was oddly charming, in that we live in the middle of nowhere but still want espresso kind of way. We'd barely stepped inside when a young woman in a navy blue apron approached us, smiling politely. "Hi there, can I help you both with anything?" Before I could say a word, Riven cut in. "We're looking for a vacuum cleaner." I turned and gave him a sideways look. She nodded. "This way, please." We followed her down a narrow aisle filled with sleek, color-coded machines. Reds, silvers, matte blacks. Names I recognized from commercials, and others I'd never heard of, but looked expensive enough to belong in a billionaire's panic room. "There's a wide range," the girl explained. "Upright, cordless, multi-surface." "That one," Riven said, pointing to the bulkiest, ugliest gray beast on the second shelf. I blinked. "We're not getting that." He looked at me. I looked right back. "This one," I said, running my fingers along a sleek, rose gold cordless Dyson. "It's a good brand, durable, quiet, and pretty." He stared at it like it might insult him. But then he just nodded. The woman lifted it from the shelf and wheeled it away with a professional smile. I turned to Riven. "What about the kitchen? Like, coffee maker? A blender? Something that makes it feel less like we're living in a 1992 bunker?" "No," he said simply. "But if you need them, go on." I smiled. "You really don't care what I do as long as it doesn't involve calling Kevin, huh?" He grunted something under his breath and followed me as I picked out a coffee machine, blender, kettle, toaster, and a multi-function rice cooker I'd probably never use but still wanted. We paid for everything, packed the boxes into the truck, and drove off toward the next stop, a tiny phone shop tucked beside a local clinic. He pulled up front, got out, and didn't wait. He led. Straight in. Quick. Silent. Efficient. Minutes later, I walked out holding a brand new smartphone, still boxed. The kind with a sleek design and barely there edges. I glanced over at him. "Okay, one last thing." He raised a brow. "Groceries," I said. "Then we're good to go. I need stuff to make breakfast." "Girl," Riven muttered, exasperated. "I told you. You don't have to do housework." "We are not having this argument again," I replied, already striding toward the market next door. "And it's not like I'll be doing it alone. Y'all are helping me." He followed, sighing like a man with no choice. As I grabbed a cart and pushed it inside, I glanced at him. "By the way, Ava asked me earlier if I could cook." "Yeah?" he said, bored. "Doesn't she know how to cook?" "No," he muttered. "All Ava knows is fighting." I grinned. "So, basically her, you, and Liam." He didn't respond. But the slight twitch in his mouth said I wasn't wrong. As we walked down the cereal aisle, tossing bread, eggs, milk, and fruit into the cart, he slowed slightly beside me. "We'll grab something for breakfast," he said. "All of us. So you don't wear yourself out cooking when we get back. I know you'll be tired." I paused, blinking at him. And then asked, softly, not sarcastically, "Are you concerned about me?" I watched him closely. Then added, "Or just trying to keep your new vacuum user alive?" He didn't answer. But he grabbed the juice I was about to pick up and dropped it into the cart without comment. I smirked. We checked out with bread, eggs, strawberries, butter, hash browns, fresh juice for me, black coffee for him and Liam, and something that looked suspiciously like chocolate cereal, which I knew wasn't for Ava. Boxes in the back, bags in the seat. And then we hit the road. Back to the dusty house. The tires crunched over the gravel as we pulled back into the clearing. The house looked the same. Old, weathered, quiet, but something about it felt different now. Like it was watching us return. like it knew we were trying to breathe inside it again. Riven parked near the porch. I grabbed the grocery bag at my feet and opened the door, stepping out into the cool air. He didn't speak, just circled to the back and pulled out the vacuum box, balancing it under one arm like it weighed nothing. We moved in silence up the stairs. The front door creaked open, and I stepped in first. Ava was sprawled on the couch, boots kicked off, arms behind her head like she hadn't moved in hours. She glanced up, nodded once. Liam sat by the window, phone in one hand, and knife spinning between his fingers in the other. Typical. Groceries, I said, lifting the bags. Also, there's a vacuum now. You're welcome. Bless you, Ava mumbled without lifting her head. Riven set the box down by the wall, then walked off without a word, probably to the back of the house, probably pretending he hadn't just bought me half a kitchen and my own phone. I carried the food into the kitchen. The counter was covered in dust and spider webs, but I didn't care. I needed to move, to do something. It made me feel human again. I unpacked the bags with ease, knowing exactly what I was about to do. Forget the stove. I went for the ready-made breakfast we picked up at the store. Simple, but good. I handed Liam a hot egg and sausage sandwich with a bottle of black coffee. Well, damn, he said, lifting the sandwich and grinning. Didn't think I'd get breakfast and a vacuum today. Thanks, Clara. You're welcome, I said with a smile before handing Ava hers, plain croissant, fruit cup, and a juice box I threw in for fun. She didn't say anything. Just took it. And started eating immediately like she hadn't eaten since last Tuesday. I turned to Riven next. He stood near the kitchen entrance, silent, brooding as usual, sipping his black coffee with that signature, unreadable stare. I didn't offer his to him. Just placed his pastry, a warm buttered roll, on the counter near him, along with his second coffee. He didn't say thank you. But he didn't push it away either. I grabbed my own, orange juice and a flaky almond pastry that still felt warm in my hands, and took a sip, leaning against the counter. Then I cleared my throat. Okay, I beg your attention. Liam looked up. Ava paused mid-bite. Riven didn't move, but I saw his eyes shift my way. I smiled sweetly, holding up my juice like I was making a toast. Right after we finish this small but beautiful breakfast, we are going to help each other clean this house. Silence. Complete silence. Then Ava. What? Liam? We're cleaning? I nodded cheerfully. Yes. Ava narrowed her eyes. Voluntarily? Absolutely. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. Sweetheart, I don't think I've dusted anything since I got kicked out of boarding school. Don't worry, I said, and turning to him with a grin. I'll show you what to do. Riven said nothing. Still drinking his coffee. Still watching me. But I swore. His lips twitched. Just a little. Like the idea of me bossing everyone around didn't bother him one bit. I drained the last of my juice and tossed the bottle into the bin with a small clunk. The room had settled into that lazy post-breakfast quiet. Liam was licking crumbs off his fingers. Ava had her feet back on the couch like she owned it. And Riven was leaning near the counter, coffee still in hand, that usual storm cloud look softening at the edges. I moved past him to grab a rag for the table, brushing against his side as I slipped by. Just a touch. Just skin against fabric. But the second it happened, my breath caught. The kitchen vanished. Gone. Silent. And in its place water, endless crashing water. And Riven standing at the edge of a high, jagged cliff. Waves raged below him, smashing into stone like the earth itself was angry. His back was to me. Shoulders tense. Arms slack at his sides. And then, he stepped forward. And jumped. Riven! I gasped, stumbling back into the counter behind me. Everything snapped back. The kitchen, the voices, the smell of coffee and bread. Riven turned instantly, eyes locking on mine. What? But I couldn't speak. I stared at him, still whole, still here, and whispered, voice shaky, I just saw you. Throw yourself off a cliff.
The worst. The worst. Every part of me, it longs for you in every way, so deep and true, physically, mentally. My heart is yours, my soul whispers your name forevermore. Whether you love me or hate me, I wanna be your only. Focus on me, don't let go, I'm madly in love, this I know. I'm selfish, I'll admit, I want you all just for me, that's it. I'll work hard for us, for our dreams. I'm yours, I'm yours, I'm yours, all yours forever it seems. In every moment, my mind